Bro, when I tell you I need a new gaming chair, bro, this is not supposed to be like this, bro. This shit's trying to get me back. What the Welcome back to the DTV channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys for all the support on the most recent videos. They've been going a little crazy. As y'all see, I got on the 𝒚𝒄𝒉 Sony hood. You know I gotta rep Sony A1. You know that Sony Alpha. You know I gotta rep it. If y'all want to copy y'all a shirt, a hoodie, tank top, whatever the case may be, link in the description. Y'all already know how to plug it. I'm sorry. They also got the mugs too. Come on now. In this video, we're gonna be going over how I edit my photos. We're gonna do another video soon on my whole workflow, but for this video, we're just gonna be talking about how I edit my photos. A lot of people have been wondering how I do a lot of my edits, and it's nothing really complex, but it's a process. And a lot of people, like you said, it's a learning process, because I remember me trying to figure out how to edit my photos. Like I remember looking up videos, how I edit my photos, blah, blah, blah. After I talk to you guys about a couple steps, a couple things, we're gonna go on the computer and I'm gonna walk y'all through how I do my thing, for me, how the magic is done. I'm gonna walk you through how I take a picture from this to this. Now, it may not be that much of a difference, honestly. But then again, it is, in my eyes. And I feel like in a lot of people's eyes too. One is a lot more appealing. Simple, come on now. I do wanna start this off by saying, you as a photo editor, as a video editor, whatever the case may be, you can always take inspiration from something, but you need to find your own lane in terms of your style. That's what any type of creating anything. Every creator, rappers, singers, graphic artists, you know, painters, anything, tattoo artists, they all take inspiration from who they inspire, like who they're inspired by and who they look up to and who they're like, you know, who they're motivated by. But you still need to take all of that and make you yourself. Like you need to be your own person. And that's what I did. And it's a process. I promise you it's a process. My photos have gone through so many different phases. Like my editing style has went through so many different phases. And it's only like, it hasn't even been 2 whole years yet. And I've gone through so many different phases. And that just goes to show you, you're not gonna get this on the first try. You're never gonna open your app and just on the first try with the first preset that you're using and I love this so much, you're gonna stick with that. No, you're always gonna be changing, growing, and you know, moving forward, or maybe sometimes backwards as a creator. And that's with anything that you do. So for the rest of this video, I think we could go ahead and take this to the computer. Okay, so as you probably noticed, different day, different background, different outfit, whole thing. We're not going to talk about that, but we're going to continue with the video. We're definitely going to get into the basics of how I edit my photos. Now, to start off with that, we're just going to first jump into Lightroom. So we are in Lightroom now. I've already put a couple photos in here. I didn't do anything to these photos yet. These photos are fresh out of camera. As you can see, they all have default settings. I know they already kind of look good, but that's the power of the Sony A1. I'm not gonna lie to you. Outdoor photos with the Sony A1 is ridiculous. I'm gonna do a video reviewing the A1 in a little bit. Like I said, already imported some photos. These are all pretty much the same photos. These are just like a different sequence. It was a burst shot. You feel me? It was a couple photos within 1 second. Just exactly. So we're gonna get into the workflow of this. Now, the first thing I'm gonna touch on is in-camera editing. It's not technically editing, but for the most part it is. And it's one of those things that will save you a lot of time down the line when it comes to post editing. It's one of the reasons why this photo may look as, you know, good as it does right now without me really even doing anything to it. 1, your exposure. 2, you utilizing the rule of thirds. And 3, color. So touching on the first one, exposure. You always want to make sure that your photos are either properly exposed or underexposed. You never want to overexpose your photos, because once you overexpose, you're losing detail that you will never be able to get back without ruining the photo. If you're gonna do anything, if you want to play it safe, underexpose all the times. 100% recommend always underexpose, because you can always just bump that exposure. The detail is still captured regardless. You can always bump that exposure, bump the highlights, bump the shadows, and still have a great photo. It's like a setting you could add onto your camera. It's called zebra mode. I think it's called that. It's like some zebra effect where zebra lines pop up over anything on your photo that is overexposed, and you're at risk of losing detail in said area. The second thing that I mentioned was rule of thirds. Now, however you choose to follow the rule of thirds when it comes to whatever photo you're taking is up to you. Just make sure you understand it and you utilize it. And there's also something for every camera that you can activate. It's like a mode or a setting you can activate that actually gives you the rule of thirds. They give you composition bars so that you know where your subject is within your frame. For me to explain it simply, the rule of thirds, you have it breaks up your frame into thirds. So if you're looking at this whole video, you got 3 sections vertically and horizontally. And that's how you need to frame your photo. You need to choose what type of photo, what type of style you're going for. But when it comes to, for the most part, in sports photography, you always want to have your subject centered. Now, I say this is an in-camera thing because for the most part, you can have a hand on making sure you are following it, but this is very much a bad example of that. But like, once again, when it comes to sports photography, everything is really fast paced. It's hard to make sure everything is always centered. So another thing that you can always do when it comes to, framing, and when it comes to framing your subject, give yourself enough space so that you have room to crop in. Especially if you know you have a camera that will retain enough details with you being zoomed back, like with you being zoomed out a little bit. If you know you have the detail to be able to punch in a little bit, give yourself a little more space. And last but not least, we have color. We're going to touch on saturation for the most part. You don't want your photo to be undersaturated or oversaturated. In terms of in camera, there's a bunch of things you can do when it comes to that. That comes with your picture profile. So this is very much depending on your camera. It depends on if your camera comes with like what picture profiles your camera comes with, what dynamic range your camera comes with when it comes to color and stuff like that. For example, Canon's color science is amazing. So, you always want to make sure you're shooting your photos. It's some picture profile that looks really dull and all that stuff, and you have a lot more range with the colors in post. And there's picture profiles that already kind of, saturate your photo and color is super nice. And there's a bunch of cameras that have really nice picture profiles that already have color photos. So you really just got to pick what you want to do when it comes to that. But just make sure you're never oversaturating your photos. I feel like it's way worse to oversaturate than undersaturate. I see a lot of oversaturated photos and they are not okay. The first thing I would do when looking at this photo is I would start off by just simply framing it correctly. I would go into the crop tool, and I'm a firm believer in using that auto tool that Lightroom implements. Adobe did a great job at implementing a lot of auto adjustment tools within this app. Like, a lot of people don't like the auto, a lot of things like manually do things. And nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. But me, man, I'm gonna hit auto, and for the most part, I can trust it. So it didn't really do too much. So what I'm going to do after that, I'm just going to zoom in. As you can see, that rule of thirds that I was talking about. So I'm going to center my subject in the middle of that. Give me a little more space. I'm going to center it, I'm going to center the middle of his body as much as I can. After I have my photo framed the way that I want it to, then I go into my editing process. Now, I'm just going to keep it super basic right now, and then after this, we're going to touch on presets. If we're just going to keep this as basic as possible, like I said, I'm a firm believer in that auto tool. So I click auto, I let it do its thing, and then from there, I do my thing. Clearly, I do not like the way this photo looks right now, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to bump the exposure back up in terms of how I like it. I'm not going to touch too much on contrast. I'm going to leave that the way it is. I'm going to touch on highlights a little bit, just bring them a little bit down. The highlights are going to be like the whites, so the pants and stuff like that, which for the most part, there isn't too many highlights in this photo. There's not so much sky to look at. It's really just the pants, but I don't want it to be, too bright, something like that. So I want to bring that down a little bit so you can still see like the creases within the pants. In terms of blacks and in terms of whites, that's fine. So that's completely fine. Another thing I like to do in terms of the profile of the photo, I like to do landscape for mine. Now, as you can see, it adds a whole lot of saturation to this photo, and in my eyes, it brings a lot of life to the photo in terms of how it looks here, right? So I do landscape. Now, if I feel as though it's too saturated, it's too candy kind of looking, I do bring the vibrance down a little bit, and then the red, it's a little too much for me right now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go right to the color mixer and just bring down the saturation of the red a little bit, not too much, just a little bit. After that, I feel like for the most part, color wise, we're good here. There's nothing else much I would do with colors here. It's all good. So now we go into the effects of things. I like to add a little bit of Vignette. It's like darkness borders on the outside, bro. I don't know how to say the word. We're just not even gonna do it. Well, it's just borders around the photo, because if you go into the plus, it adds like a white border. If you go into the negatives, it adds like a black border. So I like to add a little bit of that, nothing too much, just to give it a little bit of something on the outside. I kind of like that vibe of it. I'm gonna be completely honest. When it comes to photo editing, I'm still getting used to things too. So in terms of dehaze and clarity, I'm still getting used to it myself. However, I don't tend to ever really have to use these too much. So like I said, clarity, dehaze, I'm not really sure too much on what they do. And in my experience, if you're not sure on what things do, obviously you play around with the dials, and I have before. It doesn't really do too much like appealing things for me, so I leave it be. And I don't feel as though this photo needs it. After that, I use noise reduction a lot. If there's any unnecessary grain that I want to get rid of in the photo, like it's a little bit of grain on this photo, you can't really tell too much. It's like a very, very slight grain, and I want to just get rid of it. I just put it up ever so slightly to the point where I'm not losing any detail in the face. So just make sure I'm not losing any detail in the face. I say 15 is good, and after that, I'm done. And then we can get a before and after of this photo, and it's nothing crazy at all. You know, it just brought more life to the photo. So this is fresh out of camera, and this is with a little more, with a little bit of editing, with a little bit. I went down a spiral of presets when I first started out with photography, and I was trying to figure out what my feel was. And I feel like that's a very great thing to do. It's a lot of presets you can buy, presets that other photographers has created, a whole bunch of different type of presets out there. You can get free presets. It's so many things you can do with presets, and it just gives you a perspective of different types of editing styles. Now, one thing I do want to say, never take a preset and try to, you know, like coin it as your own style, because that's already someone else's style. That's why it's their preset. What you do, you download this preset and you allow that to give you a feel of the way you allow it to give you a perspective. You know, it's like when you take inspiration from something and you turn it a little bit into your own. You add your own mix to it. So you take a preset, you take what they've already done, and you add your own mix to it. So that's what I did with a couple of presets. 2 presets that I remember me buying is from Peter McKinnon. Honestly, if we're talking about content creating photographers, 100% is my favorite one. And I used 2 of his presets. Now, Peter McKinnon is clearly not a sports photographer. And his preset I actually used was for landscape photos. And I've been using those presets since I've been doing photography. I've been using his presets since I've been doing photography, and I've experimented with a whole lot of different ones of those presets, and including my own personality into it. I feel like presets is definitely a good route for beginning photographers to take, and then later on down the line, you can be creating your own presets once you get used to the different like dials and what Lightroom is like and all of this jibber jabber. Okay, so we are back in Lightroom. We're gonna take a very similar photo. We're gonna take the last photo that I took of this sequence. I kind of like the way this looks, so we're gonna do exactly what I did before. We're gonna go ahead and put this, you know, get the crop right, rule of thirds, get them centered properly. Boom, that's done. I kind of like where that's at. We're gonna leave it just like that. I'm gonna zoom in, make sure a lot of detail is still good. All right, boom. Now, in terms of my presets, right? So these are the presets from Peter McKinnon. So we have, you know, the PM Fall Pack, PM3 V3. I downloaded, I believe, 3 different ones of his presets. Although I don't use these anymore, the one that I found most fond of and kind of coined as my own, if you will, like the vibe of it, was Mute Master. Like, I definitely use this in a lot of my photos, indoor photos, outdoor photos. It didn't matter because Mute Master, it gave an amazing vibe, and I like the way, I like the vibe and energy that it gave off, and it was different. It was something I was able to make my own style. So clearly this is way too bright. So what I would have to do is bring down the exposure, right? So this is one of those things where you underexpose a little bit, or it's like an underexposed photo, right? So first we start with that. And then another thing I did was I do, once again, landscape, give it a little more color. After that, we're going to bring the saturation a little bit down because it's a little too saturated. We're going to go right back to the mixer, grab the reds, bring the reds down just a little bit. Then from here, I keep this up. I keep those the same. I keep the settings the same. Give it a little bit of darkness around the outside, and boom, we're done. Now you see how simple that was because I had a preset. It's super simple. And then when you have a preset and you're used to editing with certain presets, you get photos done quick, just like that. It's really, really simple. You know, you just got to figure out your editing style. You got to figure out your preset. You got to figure out like how you want to edit your photos, the style you want to go for. Now, this is like this, I don't even know what kind of style you would call this. It's like I don't even know, but let me know in the comments what kind of style you would call a photo like this. But this is the before, this is the after, and you could just tell how much life like was brought into the photo, how much detail was brought out of the photo versus how it looks straight out of camera. Or if I would have just like, you know, just click auto and did some random stuff, you know what I'm saying? Looking at this photo versus this photo, You guys let me know. You guys be the judge. What one do you think better? Honestly, I think it comes down to personal preference. However, this one, in my opinion, looks a whole lot better. The preset, like the vibe it goes, like the vibe that comes with it is just so much more amazing. But like I said, it's personal preference, honestly. And that's the beauty of editing style. It's all personal preference. There's no right or wrong. I'm just coming to show you guys how I do mine. You know, there's no right or wrong way to edit your photos unless, you know, your photos are out here looking like this. That's wrong. That's wrong. All right, I think that covers everything for this video. I hope you guys did enjoy. I hope I did help a couple people. If I helped 1 or 2 people, you know, that'll make my day. I'll be grateful. This video would have been worthwhile. I don't currently have any presets. I may be making some presets later on in the future. We're gonna see. Honestly, we're gonna see, because I don't know. I gotta figure out some more, because technically I don't have my own editing style. My editing style is just based off someone else's preset, which technically is an editing style. I don't know. We're gonna see if I come out with some presets later on. Other than that, guys, I thank you guys so much for watching this video. Thank you guys for the support on all the recent videos. I think we hit like 200 subscribers. I'm not gonna lie. It's a low milestone, but it's a milestone nonetheless. I thank you guys so much. Welcome to DTV Army. Let me know if you guys want me to do any other type of videos. We got a bunch of reviews on products coming soon. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to stay creative. See you next one. Peace.